our industry, especially with the uptick in the economy, drivers are at a premium. And I'm just going to be frank, it's not just waste management, but it's everybody in our industry, you know, trying to recruit drivers who will come to work every day and, you know, be part of doing what we do. It's hard work. It's tough work. It's hard physical work when you're hand loading trash, and that's the type of service we have here in many other communities. And what we're looking to do is, you know, take advantage of the innovation there's been in our community and move as quickly as we can to automated service. And I'll explain what that means. But what that does for us, and hopefully translate to what it means for you, is, you know, we will be able to retain the best drivers in the industry because we have a very good wage package, we have a very good benefit package, but unfortunately with the demand for drivers in all heavy trucking industry right now, it's hard to keep them. And sometimes the problems you see are because we have new drivers on route, or we have a sub on the route because somebody got hurt or somebody got sick or somebody quit, and we want to rectify that, and this is one way to do it. So our proposal is to take the trash service and the recycle service as you know it today and convert it to automated service. And what that will mean is every residential customer will be provided containers as part of the contract by Waste Management. There would be a 96-gallon cart for trash and a 64-gallon cart for recycling. It's a Waste Management provided cart, it's a Waste Management warranty cart. We have a 10-year warranty on those carts. So everything about the cart that is associated with normal wear and tear will be taken care of by Waste Management during the term of the contract. You know, we don't cover things like residents that, you know, damage the cart themselves, and you wouldn't believe what happens, but sometimes things do happen. You know, they light them on fire, they do all kinds of things, but you know, if it's just normal wear and tear for the term of the contract, that's all covered by Waste Management. If the car breaks, if it's damaged, if it falls apart, we come out and fix it and repair it or replace it. So what it allows us to do is automate the route. Literally, we would buy new equipment for the contract that's going to have an automatic articulating arm on it with a claw on it that literally reaches out, grabs a can, dumps it, sets it back down where it picked it up, so that the driver literally, for the most part, doesn't need to get out of the truck very often. It's going to be a little different than the service right now. I think it's limited to 3 bags and 3 cans. I don't know, I can't quote it for you exactly, but you know, residents put out their own containers. They're all safe sizes, various things, and it's all hand loaded into the truck right now. This way, everything goes into the cart. The cart is serviced by the truck, and the driver rarely has to get out of the truck. He might, or she even, once in a while, might have to get out to relocate the cart so they can grab it with the claw if there's a bunch of cars parked or something like that. But for the most part, the general part of the good job is somewhere 90 to 95% eliminated. The other thing, if you move to page 3, that goes along with that is we have to change the bulk service a little bit. So right now, residents can put out their bulk items weekly. I think technically there's a limit of 1 bulk item a week, but suffice it to say, our guys and gals have a goal of getting it off the curb within reason. So if it's within reason, we pick it up. Because you're going to the automated service, the bulk has to be run separately. Try to do what's scheduling of the bulk. So everybody will be able to put out a bulk item a month on a designated day. So say first Monday of the month is bulk day, everybody can put their bulk items out. We'll run a separate route to get the bulk that day. However, we'll have an a la carte service available for the residents where if they have extra bulk items, if they need the bulk pickup the next week, they can call into Waste Management, they can schedule that pickup. We'll tell them, okay, please put it out on the 3rd Monday or the 2nd Monday or whatever it is. So they still have an outlet for that material. There's going to be a nominal charge associated with it because again, it's kind of an a la carte service. But if you're going to, when you move to the automated platform, the bulk has to be handled a little bit differently, and it really needs to be scheduled so we know when we're coming out where it is to go get it, other than that 1 Monday a month when we'll run through the whole community and pick up everything we see. This doesn't really affect what the residents see on the street, but the next, on page 3, the next item down, recycle processing. Right now, the cost to process the recycle or any rebate back in the days when there used to be those, and this is another huge area of our industry that has changed, is the whole discussion around recycle processing. But right now, we split every dollar at 70-30. So we pay 30% of it, the community pays 70% of it. I talked to Courtney and the staff about, going forward in the contract. It may make a lot of sense, especially given the discussions your community and some others are having with the county about, how do we make recycling more sustainable and what are we going to do about recycle processing in the future, to shift that over where the community would pay 100% of it. But the commitment I made to them was I would try to bake back into the cost of the contract an offset for the 30%. So there's two things that are going to happen if we go forward with this proposal together with the community. One, you would take on the responsibility for the recycle processing cost, dollar for dollar, but we charge right now a fee for yard waste processing. And we've removed that fee from the contract. We'll be responsible for that 100% on our own. And if you look at the invoices over the year, that's going to come pretty close to a 1-to-1 offset for that added responsibility of that 30% of the recycle processing. Now, the other thing that's going to happen, and perhaps there will come a day when recycling will recover and new outlets will be found for the materials and what have you, where, there used to be a day when we get a rebate for it. And again, we share that with the community. Under this proposal, when and hopefully sooner or later we get to that, you would get 100% of that rebate as well. So the risk is yours on one hand, but the reward is yours on another. And again, I've put in here that offset of eliminating that yard waste processing fee to help the city, in these current times we're in now, deal with the cost of the recycle processing without having to pay any more than you pay for the contract today. The commercial service for the downtown area and the businesses and community is essentially going to remain the same. We've had this contract since 2002, and something tells me it may have been even before that, but it was probably Mr. Rubbish back in those days. And so the rates across the array of commercial customers have gotten a little out of sync with one another. And so one of the things we want to do is make those rates uniform and kind of reset that again. And that's going to mean that, some of the customers might see a slight increase, some might need a slight decrease to get everybody on the same page. So if I have a 6-yard can going one time a week, I'm paying the same rate as the guy down the road that has a 6-yard can going one day a week. We think we can balance that out with overall it's going to be an increase in cost because we haven't had an increase in that line of business to speak of for a while. We think it's going to be no more than a 5% increase overall in the cost for the commercial component, but essentially the service will stay just as it is today with that. So other than that rebalancing of those accounts, you won't really see any change there. If you take a look at the financial chart that I provided with the proposal, you can kind of see the breakdown of the residential portion, which is the piece that is going to impact the residents of the community. So if you look at the contract now, everybody pays about $13.97 a month. It does have a fuel surcharge component. There hasn't been any billing on that for quite a while because that doesn't kick in until fuel goes over $3.50 a gallon. Unfortunately, it's been below that for quite some time now, knock on wood. So you don't see any charge there. But long story short, the annual rate to the community per resident is $167.64. If you look in the sort of middle or bottom part of the chart, if you will, before the text at the bottom, then you can see the rate starting July 1 of 2019, which is our contract currently runs now through June 30th of 19. So the rate, and this is mostly related to the cost of the carts and the amortization of that cost, it would go from that $13.97 to $16.49 or $197.88. I guess the way I'd prefer to frame that is it's about a $2.50. I think it might be $2.52, but call it $2.50 increase to add the carts. So $1.25 for each of the carts. I think actually one's $1.27 and one's $1.25. because they're two different sizes, so one has a little more material involved in it. You know, if you think about that in terms of today's contract, if a resident wants a cart, it's $3 a month. So this proposal is going to provide each resident with 2 carts, one for trash, one for recycle, all of it still picked up weekly, for about $2.50 a month. We have about 40 some residents right now, I think, that currently rent carts. So actually those residents that are currently renting carts are going to see a little bit of an offset in their overall cost compared to what they're paying today. The increase built in there, I think, is in good round numbers 4% as proposed. So you can see how that plays out over the years. Some of the things down on the bottom in the text I talked about, the recycle processing cost, the commercial cost, and where we think that is going to end up. And then the yard waste offset, it's currently $20.68 a ton. For every ton of yard waste that we haul out that the community pays, that cost would go to 0. And that should help to offset, again, that 30% pickup that would be responsibility of the community on the recycle. That's an overview of what we've laid out here. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or give you more details on any aspects of the proposal that you might have in mind. Again, we would, there's another thing here, it's not really written in because I don't know the exact timing of it, but we service this out of our facility in Whitmore Lake, and the company is about to break ground on converting that facility from a diesel fueled facility to a compressed natural gas fueled facility. So that's a big investment for the company to convert one of those, not only the fueling lines and fueling stations at the site, but also you got to convert your whole shop because the vehicles are quite a bit different, and so the maintenance techs have to get all new tools and equipment to service these vehicles. But long story short, we're going to convert that fleet to a compressed natural gas fleet from a diesel fleet. So the new automated trucks that we would purchase that would be used on this contract would be those CNG trucks. And you know, the projection right now, and it's like any construction project, it has some ebb and flow to it, but we think that facility could be completed as early as the start of this contract. You know, the trucks kind of phase in after that, but I think it's still conceivable, should the project go forward and on the time frame it's planned for now, that, you know, we could have those trucks in and running in the community before 2019 is over. So that would kind of be our plan on that. I didn't write that in here, but that's also happening in the background of all of this. So if we're going to invest in vehicles, you know, the company is moving more and more towards compressed natural gas. In fact, I think we have the largest fleet of those for heavy over-the-road trucks in the United States right now. So that's been a continual platform of the communities for the last few years. So we're looking forward to having that in the community as well. Questions?
In looking at the proposed cans on page 2 of your letter, have some concern about some of our elderly residents who typically, if they put out a can at all, it's a very small can. And you know, they may put out their recycle bin, but it's usually only partially filled. But they, a lot of times, typically just put one bag, you know, not even that big of a bag, but one bag for their garbage for that week. So is there any way to accommodate those? Because
Just don't fill it out. Just don't fill it out.
They struggle with being able to, you know, carry a can.
To roll it.
Anything, you know, very big to, you know, to pull it, to roll it. You know, that's why you see them, they'll just typically put a bag out.
Yeah, so one of the things we've done also in the background here is, so all of our rigs have a computer screen in them, and all of the routes are digitally loaded up onto onboard computer, so they pick it up at check-in, they take it out, they dock it in their truck, and then their route scrolls on that screen. And one of the things we've done, in fact, you're one of the first communities we've done it with, is in the background, we've set up, they're not billing accounts, but they're service accounts for all the addresses in Dexter. So we worked with the staff to get the addresses, and we actually now can load those onto our driver's screen. It allows us to put notes and things on there. So one of the things we provide in a lot of communities is something called backdoor or side door service, where the driver will actually get out, go right up to the house and get the container and bring it down and then put it back up. So all they have to do is just put it outside the door instead of bringing it all the way down to the drive. And that's something we could incorporate into the contract to, have us provide that service. And it's not a lot of people that use it. We find in the communities, but you do have a handful that are or they're handicapped or they have some other condition. And so we just work with the city and say, hey, this person called or they called the city and want to have this backdoor service. Do you want us to add it on? So there is a way to accommodate that because, some people do have those restrictions, or for whatever reason, they can't get any kind of can down to the curb.
Thank you.
Sure.
Paul?
Does the cover have to be closed?
Does the,
Cover on the trash can have to be closed or should it be closed?
it should be closed. I mean, we'll do our best to service it, I guess, within reason. And the company, believe it or not, has talked about having all kinds of standards, and lots of attorneys argue about is 6 inches the right amount, or could it be 12 inches or that type. But it's just like today, within reason, we're going to try to get the customer service and the trash picked up. Our preference is you fill it till it closes.
Does it snap tight or fairly tight? And is that right when you pick it up that if it was open partially or
No,
somebody had a lot of stuff in there and you couldn't get it closed, it would fall out? What is that the issue, part of the issue?
It doesn't snap close, it just lies on there.
Okay.
It's weighted more in the front so it'll stay closed.
Okay.
But yeah, part of the issue with overloading it is you don't want it to spill when it's being serviced. But that these guys get pretty adept at operating these claws and with that articulating arm, and it's pretty amazing to watch them after they've had that truck for a while work around cars and stick the thing in there and grab it, or they nudge it a little bit to move it and then they grab it. We prefer it not be overloaded, but realistically, sometimes it is.
Okay.
They do their best to service it.
Second question. There are people that may have a container similar in style, not exactly the same, from another company that they acquired when they were out in the country. Are they not be able to use that? We have to use the...
We're going to offer the cart to everybody. We've gone through similar conversions where that question has been asked, and so if a community if somebody doesn't want the container and the community is okay with the non-uniformity of it, and we can service it with the vehicle, if it's a serviceable container, we'll let them use it. But we're not going to be responsible for the container if something happens to it. That's the only stipulation. Where these, we're fully responsible unless it's obvious that the resident damaged it themselves. But when they go, if it's a container, like you said, from another company or something they brought from somewhere else or they bought on their own, we'll service it if we can usually. But if something happens to that container, we're not going to be responsible. Because all these are warranted. When we take a broken container off the street, we can send that back to the company and get it covered.
When there's bulk service, isn't there a rule you're supposed to call and let them know?
Not, and with the last contract, so 3 years ago, it just became weekly.
It can be a week.
Yeah.
So there's a certain day that you...
You just put it out one day.
Right,
Yep.
regular trash day, you put
Correct.
something on. My last comment is, I have never found your people to be anything other than just the best people around. They are courteous, kind, go above and beyond at times. I wouldn't want the job in the winter or the summer.
Right.
It's hot, it's not very very fragrant at times, and they're excellent. Every time I've met them, I've even grabbed a bottle of water, a couple bottles of water, and given them to them a couple times because I felt bad for them. Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
they have really been. And the second thing was, I don't golf much anymore, but I watch your golf tournaments you have,
Okay.
and that thing is just an amazing time, and I see a lot of it. I'm happy to see Waste Management down there in Arizona doing their bit, okay? It's a big deal.
It looks
Sean
like,
probably knows about it as well.
it looks like a big deal, especially the 16th hole.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, yeah, it's just an amazing thing that you provided that type of service, and they talk, I mean, you've got a lot going on there. I love the ads and all the above. I haven't found a talking waste can yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, maybe one of these cards, you never know.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be sure to pass those comments along.
Well, I have a minor complaint to pass
That's
along.
right. I will pass that along too. Hopefully we can solve it.
Just sometimes when after they empty the trash can, you know, they flip the lid off typically onto the grass, which is fine. But then the trash can, sometimes they end up setting it on the road itself.
Right?
And, you know, on some of our streets are a little narrower than others. And my wife happened to comment today that just going up on the street we live on, she encountered 2 cans that were actually in the road. And one, somebody came off of Baker Road and turned onto the street and was coming fast and about took the can out.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so, so it's something that, you know, sometimes they just don't get off onto the shoulder there.
Yeah, no, and actually I saw two myself when I was leaving this morning on just before the bridge going out of town towards Mass Road, and one of them I thought is like, well, either they just left it there or they didn't put it all the way back up on the park lawn, you know, it was half hanging over the curb and it tipped back down into the, I think that the nice thing about the automated, and we do have to stay after them about can placement, you know, it's one of those things that you can never tell them enough to be mindful of that. I think one of the nice things about this is it'll add some uniformity and they'll have that claw, you know, and they'll be able to take that can and pick it up, dump it, and it'll put it back right where it got it from. So that is one of the nice things if you've ever seen a community that's full of carts. It's pretty uniform and the community looks good even on trash day. And so hopefully that will help us solve the problem. But I will pass that along that, you know, it's probably time to have a conversation about can placement with our crew in Dexter.
Okay, another question for you. Seeing it puts the can back down where it was, and I assume the lids are closed again. How do you know when your trash has been picked up?
Actually, after they service it, the lid actually stays open usually.
Does it stay open?
When they set it back down, because when it goes up, it flips that lid and it goes to the back, and when they set it down, it stays there.
Okay.
So now we get complaints about that too, that on a day when it rains really hard, they fill up water in there. Again, hard to move, so, you know, but it does really help the crews, especially when we have, you know, maybe we have a breakdown and somebody has to come help out. The route manager has to get out there and look and see what's serviced and what's not. It does help the drivers know that, okay, this street looks like it's done because all the lids are flipped. But it does leave them open, typically.
Because I did read where it said your cans were waterproof, you know, so that they would fill up where some of the older cans with the holes in the bottom.
They're waterproof unless the lid is open, I think.
Zach, did you have a question?
Yep, I had a couple. If new one,
If you tend to change exactly if you like it.
yeah. If someone builds a new house, do they have to pay for the bin?
No.
Okay. If a high schooler steals the cart from my house as part of a prank, I have to pay for the new bin.
You gotta prove it.
You don't know any high schoolers.
Technically, probably, but usually we only squawk when, like I said, it's things like, okay, how did you light your cart on fire? Mystery. You know, but,
Wrote it down
I
the
mean,
hill.
within reason, you have 4 carts disappear in a year, we can probably start asking some questions. so.
Okay, well, you live next to the high school, I guess. So my understanding is the 18% increase the first year is primarily to buy the bins, is that correct? And the bins last 10 years,
Correct.
but our contract extension is only for 3 years. So if after 3 years, after 5 years, if we go with someone else, we've paid for the bins and you can take them somewhere else.
Yes, we own
Okay.
it. We hope you won't leave after 5 years. But the term we're proposing initially is 5 years. And the contract always has, and has for a long time, had the ability to extend it upon mutual agreement. So.
All right. I live on a small lot in the old village, and we've got small trash cans because we don't really have anywhere to put them, and they're discrete colors. These are monsters. They're going to stick out wherever they are. Do they come in assorted colors, or is it just bright green?
Well, I don't know if they're bright green.
They're going to stick out in our yard,
Yeah.
I guarantee
I
you.
mean, they're green, but they're more of a forest green, but they're green. And one of them is completely green, the other has a yellow lid. You know, they make them in different colors. And I guess we wouldn't be opposed to talking about that, if there's a color you prefer.
All right. No, it's just,
But they're not the bright green, almost yellow ones you see around
yeah.
certain places.
Just as I look around my neighborhood, there are a lot of people who don't have garages to
Yeah.
put them in, and they're going to be sitting out all week long and harder to hide. That's all that I had, thank you.
Yeah, could somebody get a 64 gallon for trash?
Can they? You know, again, we've done that in other communities, and so we'd be happy to talk about it, I guess, is the answer to your question. So usually it works like this, we roll it out uniform. Everybody gets a 96 and a 64. Typically, the cart comes with a packet of information about how to use the cart and those types of things. What's acceptable, some of that type of material in there. In one community where we did this, well, it's actually more than one now, we put in there a postcard and asked them to try it out for 30 days. You know, if they didn't like it or they wanted to switch it out for a 64, they could mail that postcard back, and then we batched those up and we did the delivery, kind of sequenced those deliveries and did them all at once, so we wouldn't have to keep coming out, going back, coming out, going back. It worked pretty well. So if that's something you're interested in, I think we could make that work without too much of a problem. Because again, as Mr. Michael said, you know, people have all different circumstances. Maybe a 96 doesn't fit in their garage, or I don't need a can that big, so you know, that's definitely something we can talk about if you want to go that route.
Matt, I believe, Dan, you had a question.
I have a question. Thank you, Matt.
Hey, Dave.
Do you see any problems with alleys or anything that we have? This is going to be loaded from the side now,
That's correct.
I'm thinking there's some low wires in some of the alleys, and how would we deal with that as far as with the residents?
Well, so the truck gets down there now,
Correct.
and I don't think the profile of the truck is anymore.
I guess I'm thinking loaded from the side. I don't know how high that's going to go. I mean,
Yeah, I think that.
or have you looked at that, or do you think it's?
We haven't looked at it per se, but I think, you know, sometimes the driver just has to be mindful, but I think the way the truck is set up is, you know, there's a notch in the top if it's a top loader, and some of them load in the side depending on what you buy. But I don't think it exceeds the height of the truck by much at all.
Okay.
So, but we would have to look at those areas, you know, and if the driver has to grab that can and back up a little bit and move forward, that's something that they need to be mindful of when they're servicing around. You know, we encounter all the time with our front load
Right.
service, so, you know, they're fairly accustomed to it as look up.
One of the nice things, I've been in it, out on Territorial, I can't remember what suburb it was in, and they had a truck like this aside. They don't get close to the edge of the road. They're able to, and that's one nice thing for the old part of town, where we don't have that solid shoulder or that curb and gutter, so I think it's gonna even help with our road edges in the old
Yeah,
part of
I
town.
think some of those arms on those trucks have, I don't know, at least a 6-foot reach, and I think some of them even extend out to 12. There's a lot of times they gotta reach in between a car, that's what I said, if you see these people, once they get used to using that truck, I mean, they can do, it's pretty amazing to watch them work. And it's, it's very efficient. It's very much more efficient than the hand-load service in terms of the productivity.
What do you do if you fill one up and you have more garbage in it?
If you fill one up,
Well, like, graduation party,
well,
week or something, I'm just thinking out loud.
yeah, I think it,
Good
right. I mean, I think if it's unusual circumstances, always we're willing to work with people on that to, if they call and say, hey, I'm gonna have this extra, we'll put a courtesy ticket on their account and say, okay, at this address, there's gonna be some extra and you need to get it. But as a rule, we want it in the cart, right? I mean, if somebody always has more because they have a big family or whatever, they can still rent an extra cart.
Okay.
I like to say that people tend to find a way. So some people just go and see their neighbor, hey, do you have room in your cart this week? My kid had his graduation party. I mean, we've rolled it out in other communities, and 96 gallons is a lot of capacity. And for the most part, people, and we're flexible and willing to work with people on that rare occasion where they need a little extra service, so.
Justin?
You talked about potentially some modifications to the Whitmore Lake
Yes.
processing center. Is there any consideration to incorporating services that would otherwise come out of the Detroit processing center, like potentially mixed recycling dumpsters and bagster service?
So, bagster service, I would say that is a very good possibility that's going to get pushed out here. That's been a fabulous product for the company. I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but it's
I'll comment.
I don't know.
I'll comment that on a second, okay?
Can you explain what it is? I don't know.
yeah. So the bagster is a 3 cubic yard dumpster, but it's literally a bag, and so you can go and buy it at retail outlets, Home Depot, Lowe's, what have you. It holds 3,000 pounds. You set it up basically if you're doing a clean out at your house or you're doing a small construction project or what have you. You can set the thing out. It's got these straps on it, and then they come, when you're ready to have it picked up, you either call or most people just go on a website and you log in there and set up your pickup. You pay the fee that goes along with it, and then we come out with a boom style truck and pick that bag up and load it into a container on the back. So it's literally a 3-yard dumpster that you don't have to call us, have it delivered, you can use it when you want it, that type of thing. I'm thinking good round numbers. The bag costs about $30, the pickup costs about $130, so you're in for $150, $160 for a 3-yard container to have it set up when you want it and taken away when you want it taken away. That service right now, as far as I know, unless they've expanded it, but I don't think so, comes right out to the edge of our zip code. Because the territory, if they expand it, any further, goes a lot further west than we can service reliably from our current site, which is in Romulus, Michigan. So, they're aware, and we've had a lot of requests to expand it out here further, and that's why I'm saying that that's probably highly likely that that's going to happen. Whether it comes out of Romulus because they bought another truck or whether they run it out of Whitmore Lake, I don't know, but this area is pretty popular, and we've had a lot of requests for that. The other question was...
That might be useful for if we do convert to once per month.
Right.
Bulk pickup.
Yeah, it could be. Mixed recycling dumpsters continues to be a challenge. I know we have a competitor that offers it. I don't know how they're faring with that, but just because of what's happened with the recycle industry, you got to get enough of a route to make it efficient and cost effective. And so how far we've still stuck to cardboard, and I can't say I'd say that's probably a lower probability that that would happen during the term of this contract anyways. You had a comment?
The Bankster, I had a disappointing time with it. I had a bunch of stuff that I want to get rid of, and I thought that's a great way to do it. I don't have to have
Okay.
everything there, so I went to Lowe's and bought my Bagster and talked to the gentleman about it, and he told me everything about it. I was happy, and he said, this is what you do, so forth. So I got it home, I opened it up, and then when you open it up, inside the Bagster are listed the zip codes which it covers. It's not anyplace else, and it's not listed in any of the, because I went back and checked, any of the information of where it is on the information where the Bagster's located in Lowe's there. So I called them, and they said, no, we don't, no. I said, well, you go in Washington County, but you don't come out, no, we can't do that. So I bagged it back up and did the best I could to get it into some kind of a bag that it was in, and took it back to Lowe's. They took it back and informed that they should have a way that they let their people know that you don't do it in Dexter, even though where they sell it in Lowe's, where they sell it at Menards, you can't have it picked up.
Right. Yeah,
It was,
if you don't look,
it wasn't the end of the world. I figured out a way to get rid of it. I gave it to my neighbors. No, I didn't. The point being is that, they just didn't know. The salesman didn't know.
I think there was another, somebody here in Dexter that bought one and had it all filled up.
Yeah, we just
Yeah,
had
I didn't
that
have, I didn't have mine filled.
And we were trying to help them out and see if there was a way we could pick it up for them, if they were willing to, but I guess the fellow found another way to deal with it. I don't think it was you.
No, it
Because they
wasn't
actually
me.
filled it up
It
with
was
the
not me.
stuff.
I didn't, there was no information that was there provided for you to do that until you opened it up.
Yeah.
Couldn't see things
So it had the zip codes,
inside in a piece of paper.
like for how big of an area? I'm curious.
I mean, how big the zip
Like
code area?
for the whole United States or?
Oh, no, just in the general area around
Really?
here, yeah. It
Really?
listed the zip codes and it listed, I think, I don't know how far away.
You can tell I've never bought one.
It wouldn't make any difference because they weren't gonna pick it up, okay, so I didn't go.
Right, but I'm just curious, because where I'm going with my question is, I'm gonna send in a suggestion to the company, you really ought to put, if that literature is in there, why don't you put it where the people buying the bag can see it?
Yeah.
Because there are clear spots in the bag, and somehow they could put it on.
It wasn't any place that I could, and definitely.
Because obviously they know where they're shipping them to.
The fellow that I bought it from didn't have a clue that he wasn't gonna be able to pick it up. It wasn't the end of the world.
You can't-
We got rid of the trash, but I didn't, I think it's a great service, to be quite honest. I think it's really good if you got a
It
bunch
is.
of pieces of junk you wanna get rid of, just put it in there. It tells you, how far you gotta keep it away from a line or a tree or whatever, it's very clear, no question about that. So they don't
I
pick it up.
have an old one, an old display model,
Uh-huh.
and the other thing they're great for is hauling your leaves out to the. It's excellent for hauling leaves from the backyard out to the curb, and it holds almost more than you can pull. I filled mine up and I was like, whoa, might have to go get the kid.
If I had your number close by, I may have called, but I didn't.
Well,
Other
Courtney and
questions
Justin
for
have
Pat?
it, so if you ever need me, call.
Any other questions from council for Pat? Staff? All good? Pat, thanks for coming this evening.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, I appreciate all your time, and I'll follow up with you, Courtney, and see what our next steps are.
Sounds very good.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we are down to approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, removing new business item 2 and the executive session, closed session.
Second. Motion by Cousins, second by Smith. Thank you both. Discussion on the agenda. So everybody's aware there is some additional staff report for I-2, is it? For I-2. Michelle, everybody have that on? You got anyone? Okay. Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda with the removal of L2 and removal of the closed session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we have no public hearings this evening, so we're down to non-arranged participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak this evening? Okay, not at this time. There were 3 communications in the packet. Under item H, our upcoming meeting list, the signed calendar, and the budget award notification letter. Michelle?
Just one update on the EDC meeting. It's been confirmed for the 17th of this month at 3 PM in city offices. That just got confirmed today.
Okay, thank you.
And there will not be a wave board meeting in December.
Okay,
Anybody interested in not going?
okay, thank you. Seeing no other comments on the communications, our first report this evening is from our Public Services Superintendent. Welcome, Dan.
Good evening, council. Providing the 2-week report, and I also have some updates on digester, secondary lid, wastewater upgrades, Ryan wells, and a water problem we had at Wiley School. So if I can start with questions on my report first, please.
Ms. Knight.
I just have one simple question, Dan. On the Santa box, who maintains that? The one that's in front of the garage place?
It's down at the DPW. It's where we store it.
So somebody's taking the letters and responding to them? And
Oh, as far as responding to the letters, that's,
I'm not sure who's done that in recent years. I thought it was the,
didn't Aaron do it for, I don't know.
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Mary O'Neill used to do it. I'm not sure.
I
if the
did it
senior
with Mary
center.
O'Neill a couple times, and then we brought up the senior center, and then here a couple of years too.
I believe the appropriate on-television response is that Santa.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. Mayor.
I was informed of that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can double check. I think that somebody does do it. I just can't tell you off the top of my head.
That's a good thing.
I didn't mean the box itself, but where it was
Sorry, I
kept
thought
right
you
now.
meant the box.
She
Or no,
meant
the box
read the
was there.
letters, Leslie.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Since nobody knows, it must be Santa.
It is.
That's a good job.
Not on my watch.
It would be a Grinch.
Any other questions this night? I'm sorry, didn't read that. Yeah?
I got a call Sunday afternoon from Brian. He's the building and ground superintendent for Dexter Schools. They had water entering the back of Wiley building, the basement, and it was flooding the boiler area. So I called their on-call person, we went up and we shut the water off. We were up there probably for 6-7 hours that day trying to work through what was going on. We had to leave it off, obviously, because it was flooding the basement. Nothing was damaged in there. Today, we got together with Granger. We had OHM, a little bit of help. We were up there quite a bit. They put a repair sleeve on just outside the back of the building. And they got the water up and running about 3 o'clock today. They are going to have to do back T samples over the next 3 days. They're going to hire a company to do that. That water main that is actually Wiley is quite old. It comes off of Grand Street. So we talked to them about maybe hooking onto the 8-inch that we got coming off the transmission main from Cornerstone. Possibly, I think something might go to the school board today from Granger and the construction crew over their place, but I'm waiting to hear back tomorrow on that. So they'll be up and running tomorrow as far as I know for school, but there's going to be a boil water.
Go ahead, sure, absolutely. Ms. Sweeney.
So it was a water main problem?
It was a 4-inch lead that comes into the back of that building.
It just was not, and it was leaking?
Yes, it had a crack in it.
Okay.
Right under the...
So it's our problem?
No, it's their problem.
Their problem, okay.
Yeah, it's their problem. I mean, we were out there, like I said, Sunday for 6-7 hours. We were out there all through the day today trying to help get that back online.
Good.
They had no school today then as well?
They didn't have any school today. Yeah, we couldn't turn the water back on. Secondary digester lid, last week we had Biotech come in and they were removing sludge. It actually went up, went down a little bit, so we got that. On the 4 holes in the digester, we're really not sure what had made it stick. Biotech finished up today, hauling sludge, they cleaned it out. We got F&B coming tomorrow to do an inspection and to do some 3D imaging on the inside of the tank. We had some questions about the plans we had and not correlating with where the core pools were. So we want to go back in and we want to shoot and get the right information on the as-bills that we have working with F&B and OHM through that process. They started digging today, the Headworks building. They got the trench boxes in, the shoring in. When I left today, it looked like they were down to where they needed to be. They were dewatering a little bit. There was a little bit of water coming in. So I'll know more tomorrow on that, but the hole is complete. We finally got the okay from the MDEQ engineer on the Ryan Drive well configuration. So we're going to be starting on that pretty soon. And that's it for me. Have any questions?
Questions for Dan? Anything? Good job in the ice rink up or filled?
Yes, that's up today too. With everything going on down at the wastewater treatment plant and the big semis in there and then dump trucks and digging and the school stuff, I actually forgot about that, but it does look nice.
Hopefully with the nighttime low temperatures that freeze up.
I don't think it's gonna take long, like Sunday at 89 degrees. Let's hopefully that keeps up so we can get a lot of good skating in this winter.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up this evening is Michelle Agnew, our community development manager. How are you?
I'm fine. Good evening, Council. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. All right, you've got my report in front of you, plus you've got the update, which I'll go into. But before I do that, do you have any questions on the report that was in your packet?
Nope.
Okay, doesn't look like it, so that's good. All right, so really quickly on the updates. 2865 Baker Road, we are so close. We've got a stipulation agreement or a draft one that's been marked up that both sides are comfortable with. Excuse me. It is for demolition of the property and reclamation of the site. It has dates by which, or steps with dates by which the different steps, tasks that are needed to be completed are identified so that we get to the point where the work will actually be done on or before May 6, 2019. And then there are conditions as to what happens if they should fail to meet any of the dates that are in here. They've also agreed to $1,000 in fines to this point and $1,000 to cover attorney costs to this point. If they should fail to meet and the city has to go on the property and take care of it, these fines do not cover that. Those fines would be in addition. Any questions on that? I'll go to the next one.
Which means they decided not to reclaim anything on that side,
Everything will be,
everything,
Yep.
the house and
the house, all of the
Garages.
4 outbuildings, the vegetation, and then they'll, foundations, basements, anything hazardous, all going in vegetation too. And then it will get filled in if there's a basement, and then seed or straw mat.
Thank you.
Okay.
So septic tank will be properly,
Yes, if they can find a septic tank, it would be taken out.
okay.
Okay. At this point, we don't know where there is one. The thing that is of most concern is there is rumored to be an underground storage tank, the old oil tank, for heating underneath the back patio behind the house. So
Gotcha.
cost estimate includes that remediation. The only other update for you that I'll just quickly touch on, Northern United is now talking about having an outdoor seating area. That doesn't come as any surprise, excuse me, now that this kitchen's complete. But the R&D district doesn't allow outdoor seating, and so they'll have to go through a process to apply for and request an amendment to the zoning ordinance. Probably won't be something, my understanding, I found out today, is they probably won't come in December with their request. possibly in the end of January, maybe February. So they're not looking to really come to the planning commission before February. So, and just because they request doesn't mean planning commission will say yay or council will say yay. So, but this is the process they would have to follow.
No.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Just wanted to point out one thing on Michelle's report there, that the planning commission did discuss the student representative. Don't need to go over it, but
Yeah, I thought if we needed to get into it when we got to the item.
just so it's there.
Okay, I think that takes us down to city manager report.
Yep, so my report had quite a few things in it, so I just wanted to discuss a couple of them. One thing about the waste management contract, if we did decide to move forward with that and do 5 years, it would require an ordinance amendment. Because right now, the ordinance limits us to 3-year contracts for some reason. When it was first adopted, it limited it to 3 years. So we would have to amend that to 5 years if we wanted to enter into a 5-year, just as a FYI.
What is the time for that?
So our contract expires at the end of July. So we
get
still
that
have, I mean, the end of June, yeah.
We get that ordinance change previous
Yeah.
to making the decision? Okay.
We did have a meeting with Avalon Housing, the committee that was established with Scott and Donna and Sean and I, and the 2 representatives from Avalon. And so we had a good discussion. We're meeting again on December 17th. Also, the Faith and Action Building Committee, they'll be in attendance. So that, just so we can talk about that part of the project, but, you know, they're very excited about it. Still, we're thinking that it would be nice if we could potentially, basically the first application that they would need to file for funds, which was actually a little bit more significant funding than I realized, these county home funds, would be like 3rd week in January. So it could be something that council is asked to take action on the first meeting in January if the committee is comfortable with making that recommendation. So I thought it was a good meeting, and we wanted to schedule the next one pretty quickly since the timeline is pretty tight. And Sean can comment on that one. Thanks for sharing. The industrial park sign, I wanted to see how people were kind of feeling about that. We're having location issues. It's a very challenging corridor to find a location, but I think the design is coming along. Coincidentally, the amount of local community stabilization funds that we received so far in excess of our budgeted amounts, about $17,000. So it's enough money, one-time money that we could use to pay for the sign. Like I said, we're just kind of still working on location somewhere in that area. So I just didn't know if anybody had any comment or anything on that. It does meet the zoning ordinance. We checked. And we tried to keep the colors consistent with the Bush's entryway sign. You know, it incorporates the plaque, so I don't know, I think it's coming along.
You're still thinking in the median or off to the side or what?
We originally were gonna put it like on the DAFCO side, but I think it would have to go like parallel to the circle, so it would need to be 2-sided. So then I was thinking, well, maybe we should just put it in the back island. I mean, it kind of depends on the purpose of the sign, you know, and there is a street sign that says Bishop Circle. People in 21st century do tend to have GPS, so you sort of have a phone that's telling, or a system that's telling you where to go. So I don't know if it's more to just tell people, hey, you've arrived at this that was established in, you know, that this is our business park, or is it to direct people that are coming down Dan Hoy to get into the business park? I'm not really sure. That kind of depends on where it's placed. So it could go in that back island because everybody would see it as they drive in. You just wouldn't necessarily see it as easily from Dan Hoy as when it was in the first island. But it would have to go, basically would have to go parallel to Bishop Circle if it stayed on the Dan Hoy side. So, just something to think about.
Which dollars did you mention?
So we got local community stabilization funds, and it's coming in 2 sections this year. Our kind of base amount already came, and our extra amount will come in May, I think, February, March, May, somewhere in there, after the first of the year. So our base amount was about $17,000 higher than what was budgeted for. So that could be a way to pay for this without kind of impacting current operation. I don't know if anybody had any thoughts on the joint meeting on April 29th. It's something I thought about doing. I think it'd be nice if all the boards and commissions could get together. I think it might help, especially with the issue like we've had with this youth representative. I mean, it would be nice for everybody to be kind of sitting in a room and talking it through together. It's also around budget time, so if people had budget ideas and things that they wanted to share. I'm not even sure a lot of people on the committees would know each other if they ran into each other on the street. You know, they don't always come when they're getting appointed anymore. So I just think it might be nice, and fifth Mondays are generally available because things don't generally get regularly scheduled. Things don't occur often on fifth Monday. So just something to think about if you guys are interested in doing that for a couple hours. You know, just bringing everyone together. Maybe each chairperson gives, 5 to 10 minutes on their committee and what their current priorities or interesting things they're working on. We could do a save the date for that if council's interested in pursuing that. I wrote up about the employee health care. I don't know if anybody has any comment on that. We'll sign that letter with the union this week.
We did not have to do that. We did that out of the goodness of our hearts.
Correct. And because with our renewal being less than was budgeted, it was,
Thank you. I saw that.
affordable. Oh, sorry.
Have you gotten to the road commission meeting yet?
No.
Okay.
Did you want to ask
I'll
about
wait
that
till-
though?
I'll
That's
wait.
fine. I wasn't going to talk about that. So if you
Oh,
want to,
okay.
go ahead.
On there, the second paragraph under F on page 37, the road commission staff also brought up the concept of city taking over ownership of Dexter and Arbor Road from city limits to Dan Point. I'd be fine with that. I'd be concerned about the other one, from Main Street, Island Lake, from the Main Street Bridge to Dexter Pinckney Road. Because then all of a sudden, all the complaints about traffic in that section become our problem. More, I mean, it is our problem, but it's, right now, it's county. And the issue of the viaduct and everything. Just before we jump into that, I think we need to discuss that part of it, but I'd be fine with the Ann Arbor Road piece. Makes sense, because it's fronts for both shopping centers out there, so, I mean, that one makes sense. The other one, I think we'd have to discuss.
Well, taking on a bridge is significant.
Yeah.
Even though it is new, it won't always be new, so.
Right.
This is not the first time they've tried this.
Yeah, so, it was just certainly not trying to, and like I said, I mean, the Act 51 funding is, you can see, this is why communities that try to do roadwork based only on their Act 51 funding are unsuccessful, because it's very small.
Right.
It's very small. I did mention about, we had applied for a grant from the county. It was like a healthy eating grant for the, to hire a market manager. Where do I have that? Page 39E. So we figured it would be about $6,800 that would give the person time for like prep, advertising, marketing, et cetera, and then also to be present at the market on Saturday and on Tuesday. So for the last 10 years, that's been a staff person that's done the market, and that's a lot of Saturday. That's half the year of Saturdays, and after 10 years, that's a lot. So what we'd like to do is advertise, even though we didn't get the grant, it's not an extreme amount of money, to advertise to see if we could get someone that would be interested in doing that, where it would still, the staff would still handle money and, that stuff, but actually have someone to work with that could attend at the market, do marketing, advertising, things that the vendors often ask us to do. It's just been more difficult since cityhood and the increasing traffic we have in the office. And then certainly now with assessing, we need to redirect more staff time for that. So I don't know if council wants to take action on that or how you want to handle that. It was just something we put together for the grant and then thought, well, that's probably not a bad idea to do regardless of the grant. At least give it a try. I mean, it's not like a lifetime appointment, so.
I personally think it's a great idea. I think that we should at least come back with a proposal that tells us how you're gonna do it and advertise it. That's my feeling.
Okay, so we could do that for the first meeting in January if people want to see it.
Sounds good to me.
And then the last thing was just a little bit of what Pat touched on with the regional, I was calling it regional solid waste, they call it regional materials management. That's the committee that's been meeting, I think where did I write about that? Yeah. So they've been meeting in Ann Arbor Township, Ann Arbor City, et cetera. A lot of meetings, I didn't go to all of them, a lot of minutia with lawyers and language for the authority documents. But they're now at a point where they have draft documents that I think are going to stick, and it's really more of an educational component to it. They had gone as far as talking about wanting to do a materials recovery facility, but that got to be a little bit too much for people to handle. So right now they're talking about coordinated education, and then basically the concept being that we would make our recyclables so clean and desired that then we could, as a group, try to get someone to take them and process them where it's not costing us an arm and a leg as like the future goal. So for the next couple of years, it would be $5,000 a year, and we would be able to participate in, their studies of different things related to solid waste and also marketing materials. Kind of just stuff that communities don't necessarily have time to do on their own, that we would have somebody to do. So I can bring that information back in January. It's very easy to get out of if it's something we try and we don't like. They've written a lot of exit procedures. There's not a lot of, they're not going to have a lot of money to worry about. It's basically just $5,000 a community, and then that will be matched by 100% by the county for at least for the first year. Yeah, it's an interesting group. So that's kind of where that's at, but that's where this concept is. If we just keep the recycling the same, then it won't matter to the waste management contract. If we do end up finding someone that would want to take these, we're not waiting for the contract to expire to deal with it. So. And I think the haulers have been supportive of the effort too. I mean, you guys have recycling issues. The cleaner our waste stream is, the better it is for everyone, including the haulers.
Good.
I was just wondering if Justin had any comments from parks about the treehouse.
Beyond what's in here, or?
Yeah, I didn't know whether you could add anything further.
So really, Parks was approached by the Lions Club. The Lions Club's looking to do a 40th anniversary project, and they want to make it something big. So the idea that was brought to Parks was the concept of developing a tree house in Mill Creek Park, somewhere in Mill Creek Park. There was no specific location determined, but what Parks wanted to know was whether or not it's something that they should spend any time looking into, investigating, getting cost estimates, or whether it would be dead in the water upon getting to council.
I'm okay with them exploring it.
I think it was 30 feet from end to end is about what they were talking about.
It's pretty big.
It would, so it would be just open to the public in the park?
Correct.
Play with any time they want to play there?
And then if it were in Mill Creek Park North, closer to the library, they talked about potentially the library being able to hold programming in there, outdoor education events.
How high would it be?
That would be to be determined depending on where it would be located. But it would need a tree as the base for it to be a tree house.
High enough so you can zip line across and go.
Yeah. That's the thing about renting it out from time to time. Going camping.
Paul, question?
Well, I heard about it previously, and I read about it here. My question was liability. first question I had. From what I understand, if you've ever watched the program, they have a TV program that this guy builds tree houses for people. And they are probably, some of them nicer than your homes, okay? They've got unbelievable structures to them. They have to drill into trees. They have bolts and stuff that hold it all, and they're gigantic. They need multiple trees in most cases, okay, for these things to be put together. I watched it, just be intrigued to see it, okay? But they're not 5 feet off the ground.
This is, some of them are very elaborate based on
Very
what was
elaborate.
discussed.
But I
at
understood
Marcus.
that when they had made the contact with this person that does this, that they had some interest to call back and say, well, they were interested in having a discussion with the Lions Club, okay? When I meet-
I can give more information on that.
The only thing that I find about it is that, from my perspective, what I've ever seen these on, we're not talking 5 feet off the ground, we're talking 20 feet or more off the ground. And my question would be liability. It's not like falling off of the path in Mill Creek, okay?
Well, we do have like the rock climbing, the rocks and stuff that, so, but yeah, if we, that's part of exploring it, would be the
I got
insurance
it.
company.
I'm willing to explore it. That was my precaution.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there any other concerns that I can take back to Marcus?
It might be worth thinking about making it discreet in terms of the coloring of it, so that, because that's a beautiful park, and it could accommodate both, but maybe not like a red tree house or an orange tree house or something like that. So I think that would be worth thinking that over.
If they constructed some observation decks for in the park, some elevated, places like that. Because especially as you look at phase 2, where you get out in the marsh lands and stuff, a decent sized observation deck could be constructed. Maybe down back of the cemetery, even back in there. Just another idea.
Speaking of the cemetery, the Rotary Club has approached the cemetery about putting in park, was it benches, seats, or, and they talked also
Maybe
about
gazebo
possibly a gazebo in one area there too.
in the cemetery.
In the cemetery, right. In the western border there. And they do have one observation deck that kind of overlooks the park, a small one already.
I appreciate that they're asking, ahead of time. I see no problem. Not the Rotary.
I know.
Well, just that way we don't get too far down a path with something, you know what I mean? But I think that's the perfect venue, the Parks Commission. It's the perfect venue to vet it and ask the questions. And I think you got height, liability, appearance, and then obviously location, so.
Yeah, that was one of the comments that was made at Parks, was that, they wanted to get in early and start the conversation, so we don't get too far down the line.
If I might throw some spaghetti into this, instead of a traditional tree house, we've got discussion about planting plan for the bank from the farmer's market down to the park. It would be interesting to see if they could create something that could fit into there. And I say that because it'd be possible then for folks who aren't mobile to be able to get into it. If it's in a tree up 30 feet, there's no way you can get that ADA. It's going to be a 1,000-foot ramp to get them up there. But if it's worked into the bank somehow as part of the planting plan, then one level of it, kids in wheelchairs or in strollers or whatever can get to it too.
Good thought. Still on your report?
Yeah, I would think so.
They have questions for Courtney? Okay, I included my report in the packet. I wanted to let everybody know that I started contacting the applicants that have submitted for the Housing Task Force. We've had another good turnout. We received 15 applications by the Friday at 5 p.m. deadline and one after that. So there's 16 people that are interested in doing this. I'm thinking that this is a working committee, and I traded a couple emails with Zach on this, and so if I say something that we didn't quite cover, correct me or help me here. But I'd like the council to consider expanding the committee before we even start. We did this with the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Group, if you recall, a few years back when we were putting into it. And I think we could get 6 at-large members instead of 4 involved right away. People have a lot of different backgrounds that have applied. If you're interested in seeing the packet, I do have a PDF that Courtney provided me. Not trying to keep those names secret. I'm happy to share them with council. So you can see those folks. I'll do that. It just occurred to me today, so I apologize for that. But I have started contacting some of them, the ones that I was most intrigued by their the applications and stuff, qualifications.
Now,
So-
we established that with a motion, right?
Yeah, so
To increase it, just a motion?
yeah, I was thinking that, on
Put
the,
that right, Lisa.
put it right into the agenda. When we get to that,
Next meeting.
for the next meeting. But, well, yeah,
Do that on the
yeah.
26th, that's not.
Yeah, I'm planning on having it at the December 26th, if everybody's okay with that. So anyway, the good range of folks. I am focusing a little more on the people that live in the city in terms of preference. There were some applications from folks outside the city. I think there's even ways to involve everyone, but that's kind of where my head is right now with that. The road commission meeting was touched on earlier. I just want to comment in case anybody hears anything. The ball is in DTE's court. I know this has been Courtney's part of the report, but the ball is in DTE's court to take some lighting levels near the roundabout. That's their task, and I don't believe that that's been done. I don't think we've heard anything yet, but we asked them to take it when there's snow on the ground, so there'd be maximum, worst case scenario, and start taking those light levels. So just so everybody's aware, that's, if anybody knows anybody or talks to anybody about what's going on, that's what's going on there. Courtney, I think, covered the Avalon housing meeting pretty well. Yeah, I think that's a good use of the property. We have to figure out how interested Faith in Action is to have a co-space at that same location. That's the purpose of getting those folks in the meeting, the second meeting. But we had a very productive first meeting, very back and forth in terms of understanding each other's thoughts on why. I'm getting an opportunity tomorrow morning to meet the new sheriff lieutenant. Courtney's going to introduce me tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Is it a whole new person that we don't know?
Yeah, so she's actually an acting lieutenant, so as part of the sheriff's hiring process for road services, road patrol commander, basically, they're doing 3-month interviews with everyone, so there's 4 lieutenants that are up for the position, and each of them will take a 3-month stint as acting commander. Lisa started last week, so while she's doing that for 3 months, Lieutenant Hanson will come in and cover for her. So then Lisa will come back for 9 months, and then they'll see who they're gonna promote. So it's an acting lieutenant. It's an interesting process they're using, but it should work well for them to see who the best fit is.
And one meeting that I left off my report, not intentionally, but last Thursday, the 6th, the Huron Waterloo Pathways Initiative folks had their second public meeting. I guess one of them occurred earlier in November that I did not go to. But they were talking about their interpretive signing that they're planning for various areas along with the border trail. There were only about 10 people that showed up that weren't staff of either county parks, the pathways, or, but as you might expect, the signs would be things that talk about connectivity. The themes are connectivity, the river, the history in the area. I gave the example of the sign that the students did with the Frederick Pelham. They all loved that, and it isn't even on the path, but that one's there. But anyway, I did attend that meeting. I didn't quite know what to expect, and it's a pretty small group, but I did go. So, does anybody have any questions for me? I don't want to steal Julie's line, but I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Oh, good. Council comments.
Well, I get to make mine now, so I don't have to go now.
Yeah, I have a
Fine,
question.
later.
Are we going to meet on the 12th of December? Of course not.
Uh-oh, do I have the date wrong?
Well, it says December 12th, City Council meeting.
Oh, what's today?
2 days from now.
Did I move it? I got the wrong
Oh.
date, sorry. That's supposed to be the 10th. Yeah, thank you for noticing that, jeez. Yeah, thanks. Any questions for me? Okay. We are down to bills and payroll then, or consent agenda.
I move we approve the 3 items, excuse me, 3 items listed on the consent agenda. Excuse me, again. Bills and payroll in the amount of $229,011.08. The 2019 meeting calendar and the reappointments to Board of Review and the Election Commission.
Motion by Fisher,
Second.
second by Smith. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the 3 items on the consent agenda, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. We have no old business. We're down to new business item L1, which is discussion of stormwater and wastewater grant update.
So we've been working on this for now, and it's gone by very quickly, as we kind of figured that it would. But we've gotten a lot of stuff done, and we still have some things to take care of, but we figured it was a good time to give council an update on the progress. Patrick provided a very helpful memo kind of outlining what we've done and what we still plan to do. We did finish quite a few manhole inspections for sanitary and storm, and those actually came back really decent, not huge problems, a few things. And that'll be a great thing for future capital improvement projects where we can do, a couple here and there, or a couple every year. We've added a few things, knowing that we had some extra budget room. The stormwater detention basin inspections, which have been helpful because we get a lot of questions about the basins, and we did a lot of work on who owns what, and trying to figure out those conditions so that we can help the residents or the homeowners associations that are responsible for them. We also added reviewing our outfall structures for our stormwater so that we can, again, put those into a maintenance plan and be able to do projects, because we do have some that are in some challenging condition. The other big one that we're still working on too is the asset management, the computerized maintenance and management system software, and we've got that narrowed down to 2 vendors, and we're just getting ready to make that decision. He's also listed the anticipated tasks, which is a lot of the report writing that's required, and then some additional tasks that we're considering, just because the televising came in so much lower than A, the estimate, and then B, the bid. So we're working on some ways to we just want to make sure that we use all the funds. So basically an update, if anyone has any questions or comments on where we're at. We just got about $80,000 dispersed back from the state last week. So we're pretty much caught up on disbursements from the state. We don't have much. I think that was through services at the end of November. We basically used staff time to offset our 10% match. So we've spent very little of actual city cash. It's mostly been salary match because the guys have tracked all their hours that they spent with the mapping and the televising of the sewers and the storm. And that's been really great to not have to use cash for the 10%.
I have a question. On the additional tasks, page 65.
The what?
Page 65 of the packet, the last page of Patrick's memo. It says, under number 2, it says Northeast Interceptor Sewer Inspection and Access. Are you suggesting that the access roadway is something that's grant eligible?
The way we are looking at that, like for instance on the sewer that runs from the north side of the Huron River to the Huron Lift Station, we included in our bid an item to go in there and do maintenance to actually create an access pathway, which was ineligible because we actually had to get to the manholes to do the inspection. There's been other communities where we've done the same type of activity where we basically had to kind of create an access way. So as we went out to do the inspection on that Northeast Interceptor sewer, because of limitations by the railroad, we weren't really able to access a couple of those manholes, and a few of those are in key locations. And walking it with Eric last Monday for the utility department, there's a 600-700 foot stretch of sewer that we really can't get to. So one of the things we talked about is doing some additional inspection. In order to do that, we would need to create some sort of access way to get there in the first place. So we're exploring the idea of, in those areas, because we want to figure out what's going on with that sewer, potentially working within the bid that we'd already put out to add some of the items, the clearing and some of the access pathway creation, explore that alternative to do that.
Can you explain, I know where the DPW site is, I know where the railroad is, I know where there's a fence. Are we talking going towards Dexter Huron?
Yes, so if you kind of go right behind Cottonwood Condo, and then there's also the Huron Commons, kind of at the, if you go to the end of Inverness,
Yeah.
there's right around that location is where the sewer resides. So it's, you go as far as you can on that, there's an access pathway on the north side of the railroad tracks, and right around at the end of that point is where it jumps across. So that's the area we're talking about, roughly. And as we walked it, Courtney mentioned outfalls. We got eyes on a few of the outfalls by Cottonwood condos that we would want to understand that a little bit better about what's actually out there in terms of the condition. There's kind of what I would call non-conventional methods for stormwater discharge that are currently in place that we should document. Looking back, really, we've been doing an outfall project every couple of years, and some of it's because of us walking back there and or staff going back there and finding conditions that are degrading, and it takes sometimes all it takes is a couple of big storm events, and you wouldn't know it, but there's one that is enough to undermine a pipe, and all of a sudden you have a 20-foot section of pipe laying in the Huron River. So doing methodical inspections of those, being a little more, not so much reactive, but maintaining, tracking progress of those will hopefully result in less expensive projects than having to go back and rebuild the whole thing.
And also with doing some catch basin assessment too, especially, I mean, there's definitely some issues. And we talked about now that the grant, since we were in a later round, some of our housing that it's basically not supposed to really look at much that's not 20 years old, but now we're kind of at a point where even a lot of the stuff in the subdivisions was put in 20 years ago now. So looking at some of the catch basins and things, not only, there aren't a lot of those downtown, most of those would be in the neighborhoods. So.
And to give kind of a snapshot about just the program overall, so there's kind of two components. There's the asset management, which is similar to what we did for the water side last year, where we want to know where everything is. So we did that with mapping, where we go across the entire city. We want to know what condition it's in, and so that was done over the last year with the inspection of the pipes and the manholes. Now we're in the number crunching phase, where we bring all that data together We want to find out what condition the system's in and then make some projections relative to capital improvement work or maintenance work that's necessary that would eventually inform a rate. So whether there needs to be any sort of rate adjustments. But we pair that with a level of service as well. So, you know, if we want to temper what the needs are with what the expected level of service is. For things like sanitary sewer, a lot of times it comes down to the amount of maintenance you want to do, the number. Some communities tie it to metrics like basement backups, things like that. We don't really have to worry about that in Dexter, but that's kind of a little bit of an iterative process that eventually you involve your rate consultant, UMBA in this case, would come and help inform that. On the stormwater side, we're doing the same thing, but because there's really no dedicated funding source for stormwater, it's a little bit of an exercise to kind of think about what that would look like. Some communities are starting to consider stormwater utilities to fund things like stormwater. City of Ann Arbor is probably the geographically closest and most substantial stormwater utility in the area. They have obvious needs from stormwater, and by having a utility in place, it allows a funding source to be set up to kind of fund that. The other component of it, I talked about the assets management plan. The other part is the stormwater master plan, and that is really looking at the stormwater system that's in place now and identifying any areas that are inadequate relative to hydraulics, relative to water quality. And our plan from that is to kind of walk away with at least 5 or 6 kind of early action projects that can be done to remedy some of these things. And obviously those will have cost estimates that would also go into informing any sort of stormwater needs assessment. So really the next 6 months is going to be an extremely busy time frame as we pull that information together. As Courtney mentioned with the budgets, because we came in significantly under on the investigations for the inspections, all that stuff is still eligible to go out and do additional investigations. We can still keep our work going. I think the way we approached it is we looked at some of the problem areas that were identified by staff. We went out and looked at those. But then we also looked at a random assortment of others. It kind of gives us hopefully a relative consistent snapshot with what we would expect if we were to project across the entire system. Now that we can actually look at the newer subs, that'll help with that a little bit. We would anticipate that it would, because it's all newer infrastructure, it would improve the overall score, but it shouldn't affect too significantly the work that we are going to be undertaking in the next couple months here. So I think other than that, you'll see us again probably at least a few more times before we get to the point of engaging with the rate consultant. And then there'll be a final review of the document that I think would come to council. And the one thing that on the sanitary side or wastewater side, if there is any identification of a rate increase that would be required as a result of it, the council would have to enact some percent, I think it's 5% of that required rate increase. But the way that the city's been engaged with the work at the plant, the system overall, everyone has a pretty good idea of what really is out there in terms of needs. So we wouldn't anticipate that would be something that you'd be seeing this year, but just a heads up, that is the process that lays in front of us in the next 9 months or so.
Is our final due date May or October?
October.
Can I add something? This was a great exercise for the city of Dexter. To be able to go through the wastewater and the storm and have a really good idea of what's going on, be able to go to all the problem areas that we've been looking at and being able to document them, and then now having extra money. I think one of the reasons we have a little bit of extra money is because of our staff and the time that we spent with OHM during this process, with the TV crews, with, the Vector trucks, and all the way through this whole project. I think this is really going to be something that's going to be useful for many, many years as we go forward.
Thank you.
Appreciate your good work. Thanks very much. Okay, on to business L3, discussion of youth board representatives.
So council, we talked about this a couple times at the last meeting and then at the meeting, at our special meeting. So we just kind of did a summary of that. And just wanted to know if council had any changes to the student representative sheet and sort of what you saw as the next steps in this process. And I know planning did discuss it, which was mentioned in Michelle's report.
Zach?
I guess I'll start. Thank you. I think we ought to do it. The changes on here are good. I don't think encouraging folks, as I read into what was discussed at Planning Commission, encouraging kids to show up isn't going to provide really meaningful interaction or feedback or input. We get the Boy Scouts here and they say their names and what badge they're going for and then leave. So I think these write-ups are good. We ought to aim to do that for this upcoming year. I suspect, based on the people I know in all these groups, there's going to be at least one in that committee or whatever who will be excited about being kind of a mentor and sharing information, based on the folks I know. One spaghetti strand I'll throw out there for discussion is, do we want to consider a youth member at this U-shaped table in the near future as well? That's all I've got.
I think a good place to start with those would be the Parks and Recs Commission, because they seem to be very excited about having a student representative, and I think the students would be interested in that as well. Maybe if we just take one commission or committee at a time and add a student. And eventually, finally, the city council.
I'm supportive of adding them.
Yeah.
Wherever. But if you want to start at parks, I'm fine. I think we could start at least a couple.
Well, and just because we have the potential for doing it, we may not get qualified candidates, or someone might not be interested. That's true. So we don't have to try to force someone in there.
I agree with you, Sean. I think a couple would be fine. And I agree with Zach that I think that we ought to consider for this body as well. We've heard from the school board that that's something that they do and have done for a number of years. City of Ann Arbor does it. I believe the city of Saline does it. It's not new ground that we're plowing here. It's been done. I think people will understand that this is the one that where the decisions are made that relates to all the other decisions that are made. It would be the one that would be the most logical to see how government really works, if we work. And with that, I would try to suggest that we include that in a future discussion or a future motion.
So do you want me to make it a consideration item for the first meeting in January, and then someone can make the motion for which
That would be
committees
fine.
it goes on, and then we vote on it?
Thank you very much.
So that was the idea, that we would implement this immediately, and then it would run through June. So it'd be, this first outing would be a partial year.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose they could do it maybe if they were interested in like a year and a half, as opposed to just being 6 months, you know?
And I'd probably be in June you're doing that, right? It doesn't have, yeah.
Right.
I asked because it seems like there's going to be an initial period of, ramping up.
Right, so you kind of need to do it for only a
The
few
real
months.
benefit of the experience is going to come several months, not just 3 or 4.
Well, and then there will also be time that we'll need to advertise it.
Yeah, so by the time we
the
get that-
recommendation.
Yeah, so we could do, say that the first one will be for a year and a, few
However
months or
long it
whatever,
is.
yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? That sounds good to me. We'll see that in January as well. Thank you, everybody. New business item L4, consideration of healthcare savings plan amendment.
Move to approve the attached amendment to the participation agreement for Division 301302.
Motion by Michelle,
Support?
second by Bell. Thank you both. Ready?
This is just something council has to act on because it has to be set by council, but like I said in the memo, this only affects one employee who requested the change, so it doesn't have any financial impact on the city.
Questions on the council? Maybe we've seen this before.
Yeah, we did it a few times, I made a mistake on it, so that's why I didn't, so that's why I didn't do it again. I just didn't put enough money into it.
Okay, Ms. Jones, please call the vote.
Knight,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Yes.
Cousins, Bell,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. New business item L5, consideration of the chemical bid award.
Make that motion.
I'll second it, so long as I don't have to read the chemical names.
That's the motion on the bottom of page 85, right?
Yep, that's my understanding of the second.
Yes.
Okay.
A suggestion motion for the delivery of.
Yep, okay.
So since we started bidding chemicals, I don't know, 6 years ago, we've tried to do 3-year bids and it's worked well, but unfortunately some volatility in the chemical market has made that more challenging. The vendors don't really want to commit to 3-year pricing, not all of them anyway, so we reviewed everything, the utility staff reviewed everything thoroughly, as they always do. And this was the recommendation that they came up with. Some of these chemicals we certainly buy in much less quantity than others. Things like fluoride, we use very little of. So this way, hopefully a year from now, we can either extend the prices for another year at the same level, or just reissue a 2-year bid and hope to get 2-year pricing that we would come back to council with if they won't extend it for the same price, basically. So on the 3 chemicals that we aren't awarding for 3 years. Makes it a little bit more complicated, but it's just kind of the way, it's kind of the way that it is. This is a change in vendor, because one of the vendors we're using now has been trucking it from somewhere crazy, like Indiana, or, I mean, yeah. Because they closed their Michigan location during the contract. So, yeah, that didn't work out too well for them. They're spending a lot of money to get it here, but they will keep doing that till the end of January. And then this will start February 1st, so.
Were the only municipality that happened to? I mean, that happened to them, or were there municipalities in the area that they had to service?
I'm not sure how many other ones that they do, but.
There's a lot of water and wastewater treatment plants use similar chemicals, so it's
Yeah.
affected more than just us.
So Courtney, just so I'm making sure I'm following all this, the motion says 3-year term ending February 1, 2020. Is that really supposed to be 2022? For the first 2? Or the first 3, I mean?
Yeah, sorry, that's just a typo.
Right, and the first 3 are
Yeah.
through 2022?
Yeah, they should be 3 years. And then the other ones are just 1 year with the option to extend only if it's at the same price.
We're going to follow that?
3 years from February 1st of
Yeah.
20.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so we have a motion by Fisher and second Michelle's?
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't have to read it, I think. Any other questions? Please call the vote.
Bell,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Cousins, Smith,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Motion carries, thank you. New business item L6, consideration of setting a public hearing for Monday, January 14th, 2019, on an ordinance to opt out of the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act. So moved.
Support.
Moved by Smith, second by Cousins. Thank you both. Any discussion, Michelle?
Yeah, so council has said that they wanted to move forward similar as we did to medical marijuana, though with medical marijuana, we didn't actually have to pass anything to opt out. You opted out unless you opted in. So this is just a very basic ordinance that was, I think, partially based on MML guidance in other communities. Michelle looked into what other communities and recommendations. And basically, it's just saying that we opt out of having marijuana establishments in accordance with that act. So we would have the public hearing in January. This would count as its first reading. It'll go in the paper, and then we would potentially be able to act on it in January.
Zach?
So to clarify for those who aren't ankle deep in this, can you confirm this is subject to petition?
Correct. It could be referendum.
And we do have the opportunity, after Laura has promulgated rules, to reconsider this.
Correct. So like the city of Plymouth, for example, Sean provided some stuff they were doing, and they decided they were going to look at it annually, you know, just to see if anything changed or if, you know, the rules. So yeah, I mean, it could always come back up and be rescinded and changed.
Thank you.
Other questions? All good? Okay, please call the vote to set the public hearing for Monday, January 14th.
Fisher.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Cousins.
Yes.
Knight.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Gale.
Yes. Thank you, motion carries. Let's see, we are down to council comments, starting with Ms. Knight.
Well, since you stole my line, I'm going to say Merry Christmas to everyone.
All right. Lovely.
I was trying to give you your line.
How did can I ask a question? Were you involved in the Christmas events at Gordon Hall this
Sure.
year? Did those go okay?
They went quite well, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Good.
We'll bounce up to Zach and then come back to Jim.
All right. I haven't refreshed myself on this, but as part of my participation on the Michigan Municipal League Legislative Committee for Transportation Infrastructure and Technology, last month we met, and one of the bills we discussed with the representative of the governor's office was a House bill that would require all folks who have water systems greater than 1,500 users to collect a surcharge, which we give to the state for them to distribute to people who have bad water systems to fix it and for emergencies if all of a sudden there's PFAS everywhere. Everyone at the table said, we kind of like this concept, but you're penalizing the communities that have done their job and have good systems and good pipes and good infrastructure. And we made that pitch to the representative from the governor's office. So the MML took a opposition to it, but it looks like it is going through with a bunch of other stuff in the lame duck assembly there. So there you go. We get to pay extra for other folks who haven't been doing what they've been supposed to be doing. That's all.
Update on that. Mr. Smith? No? Mr. Fisher?
Merry Christmas to all, and have fun with your families, wherever you will be.
Mr. Bell?
I just wanted to say thanks for welcoming me aboard, and everybody, well, a lot of people have offered to help me come up to speed on various issues, which is really helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr. Cousins?
Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year. Oh, I guess we don't have to say that right
Yeah.
But I had a discussion with one of the members of the Community Foundation about the issue in Chelsea, and they are taking it under advisement to look at that. Nothing has been done other than just that they're looking at it. I'll keep informed. We're not having a meeting But I'll keep informed of that when I hear something, okay?
Do you anticipate they will do anything about it?
I don't know that, that's a great question. The person I talked to was very concerned that there was illusion in the application that Dexter was participating, and we weren't even talked to about it, and they were very concerned at that. It seems to me personally that there was a lack of due diligence to examine that process there. And so it may be able to be worked out. One of the concerns that has also been brought to me since that time is that it's not able to be sustained the way they have it, okay? One of the things about these buses, you get them for 5 years, but this thing goes for 3 years, and then what do they do the next 2 years, anything out after that, you know? And these buses are basically free buses that they get, and guess what they get in 5 years? A brand new bus, okay? And I don't think they got that whole picture yet, and so besides some of the hard feelings that were there, there's some legitimate issues about the transportation and whether it was duplication of services and duplication of cost, and whether it violated any state, local, state, or federal guidelines. And could it affect the WAVE's funding in the future? And so there's a number of things that are still all out there. And I'm not trying to paint it as a horrible thing, it's just that it's not, wasn't done correctly, and we're investigating.
Thank you.
Press on that.
Ms. Jones, last but not least.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
We are down to non-arranged participation. Is there anybody in the audience
Happy
who'd like
holidays
to
to
speak?
all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will seek the motion for adjournment. So moved. Moved by Smith, second by Knight. All in favor? Aye. Happy holidays, Sue Lynn. Enjoy your Christmas time, okay? Merry Christmas Eve.